Yeah, ahoy, greetings everyone. It's May. It's May 17th in the world of Beers with Max. It's been a month or two. We've got an excellent cast and crew here today. Hopefully we've got people that brought questions because we don't want to hear me talk the whole time. We do want to hear Jared Fuller talk. Jared, give us a wave. Jared, how do you introduce yourself? With someone that is doing so many awesome things. Like, where do you even start?
I'm the partnerships geek, but I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none, in the sense that I've been a head of marketing, I've been a head of sales, I've owned an agency, I've started a SaaS company. I've done a little bit of everything. You don't quite see the gray hair here, but I've been in SaaS for 14 years, um, and been in the professional game for 20. So I've done a little bit of it all, and partnerships have always been my secret weapon. And I've interviewed, written about, wrote Nearbound the book, um, probably more than anyone in B2B on the concept of partnerships and tech. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves at this space where the third rail of GTM, which was kind of like marketing and sales fighting and partnerships no one wanted to touch, now everyone's trying to figure it out, from SaaS companies to disruptors to agencies and consultancies. Um, so I love speaking about how every other department can leverage partnerships: the marketing team, the sales team, the success team, the product team, the ops team, to make it real, not just like this department that's relegated to the sidelines and doesn't deserve any glory. Screw that. Here to shake the game up. And Nearbound is the category that it's kind of taken off. It's been been a pretty fun ride, considering the word barely existed a year ago.
We actually got a fun question to start. Speaking of the word Nearbound, thank you, Mark Piercy, for that. Just in time with the starter. But I do want to mention that this is probably a microcosm for a regular call that Jared and I will be doing, bringing together SaaS organizations and service providers that are interested in doing better sales, marketing, customer success, talking about people that are actually doing Nearbound things. I'll put a link to the first one, first official one. We're calling it Nearbound Live, happening on June 5th. And if you have any questions, if you're a service provider, you're in a SaaS organization, you have any questions about what's going on, let us know. But you'll certainly hear more about that in the future. All right, without further ado, first question, because I'm a huge fan of Jared's. Jared's brought me into some great organizations, great times. And I saw Nearbound and I was like, really? Like, do we need, of course you are. I'm doing a cool like intro monologue. So give me a break here. Uh so I saw Nearbound and I was like, oh my God, not again. Like I went on a buzzword diet years ago and I like the world in my mind, the world does not need another bound until I did an interview on the Nearbound podcast and I started to have senior chief strategy officers literally reaching out to me going, "Hey, I saw your thing. We're doing a Nearbound initiative with our executive team. Let's talk." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is inbound all over again." So once in a blue moon, the world goes, "Hey, direct advertising is pissing people off. Let's create content." Today they're going, "Look, the content is pissing people off. I don't really trust anybody unless I already trust them." And so the question for Jared, and Mark, you sent me a great post on LinkedIn that was calling this out. Jared, what is the significant, like, why is it important that you chose to call and coin this nearbound thing? And why is that significant for anyone trying to gain buy-in for substantial change in go-to-market strategy?
I love when there's actually a good question, like why use the word nearbound versus partnerships. And I think this
Yeah,
is
because
very
like
important.
partnership, I was telling people like it just means partnerships, and they're like, "Oh, why then why?"
And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Look, the only defensible thing in business today in 2024 is a concept called network effects. Network effects. And there's 16 network effects. In my opinion, the most powerful network effect is language. Language is a network effect. Lexicon is a network effect. So when you come to someone and you're talking partnerships or ecosystems, and you're trying to get this, motion orchestrated to the front line. Let's say it's a content marketing manager, an account executive, a customer success rep. What partnerships means to them is very little. But if you anchor that to, let's say, outbound, inbound, nearbound, Then all of a sudden, the conversation gets much more interesting. You see, outbound means target. Your company's at the center, and we're going to target certain accounts, right? Inbound means attract. Your company's at the center, and you're going to attract certain accounts. Nearbound means surround. The customer is at the center, and what matters is who has the relationships with them. So that's why the subtitle for the book is Nearbound and the Rise of the Who Economy. It's about living in market, not merely going to market, and understanding how you market with the people that your customers already trust, the ones that you want. How do you sell with the people that your customers and your prospects already trust? How do you serve with? How do you build with those existing relationships? And I think that's the reason why Nearbound is so important, is because it needed to anchor to what the GTM teams were already thinking through. There's already existing cadences and rituals for running an outbound program, an inbound program across marketing, sales, and success. And there is and can be the same thing for Nearbound. And that was the thesis for the book. So I walk through each department in the book on how to orchestrate this. And then I even build in the cadences and rituals on how to overlay the partnerships motion to each department. That's what's different. Most of the content in the partner world has been about how to build a partner program or department. And now it's about how to orchestrate it inside of each department.
When
I
it's
loved answering
interesting
that
to,
while Max was playing Super Dad. That was fun.
that's I
That
was
was
like,
perfect. I was paying attention to every word. All right, so we got Joe. Joe, you have a great question. I know. And then Marnie, are we doing? We're doing. Did you have a comment about? Okay, we're doing. So we'll go to Joe. Joe, my interpretation of your question was like, give me examples of nearbound projects, but that was in my own words. So go
No,
ahead.
Max, that's right on. It's a two-parter. I think that's valuable for the group, but real quick, if you could, Jared, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of co-ops in purchasing
Yeah.
organizations. I feel like this is almost like a sales and marketing co-op. Could you compare and contrast that, or what are the similarities that you see? Because co-ops and purchasing had high value at one point and still do to a degree. But after that, I'd love to hear about the practical applications you guys have. Max and I have chatted about it, and I think it's awesome. Thanks.
Um, I wouldn't try to draw too many similarities between the concept of nearbound and a co-op. And let's make it very specific. So let's talk about, you have a sales organization, account executives, and they own specific accounts, right? A co-op is like you're kind of combining purchasing power, right? To go out and have better bargaining rights amongst, the market. I think this is where I can make nearbound very specific. Okay, if I'm an account executive and I own 100 accounts, which accounts do I reach out to this week? That's a valid question, right? Some are going to be outbound, some will be based on inbound signal, but then some should really be based on, well, we have 40 integrations, we have, 50 agency partners or something like that. Whatever your partner relationships that exist, maybe you should prioritize those 100 accounts based on the relationships that your company already has with that existing customer, right? So then we're sorting that 100, okay, these top 20, right? They have 3 or more tech partners. They have, 2 or more agency partners. And then the question becomes, well, what play? Now, here's where I'll differentiate this between a co-op and what I would call a nearbound sales play. I talk about the 3 I's of nearbound sales: intel, influence, and intro, right? I can go and see, okay, this ISV, an integration partner, closed this account last quarter. Here was the roles that they had involved. And there's one of 2 ways that I can approach selling this account. I can go cold. I can go to their LinkedIn and be like, hey, I saw you went to Wake Forest University. Go Demon Deacons. It's 2024. Who cares? Right? Like that type of targeted, outbound, personalized, good luck. You and every AI bot can do that. Instead, I can go to the partner that closed that account last quarter and I can ask them for intel. Hey, here's my value proposition. I saw you sold to the ops manager or to this person or this role or the CISO or whatever. I'm curious, does this align to the business challenge and business initiative where you close the account? I call that getting the answers to the test. Most account executives, when I tell them easy deals pay the same as hard deals, they listen. That's what I mean by nearbound, right? It's that you can go around and surround the customer. Be multi-threaded, not just inside the account, but inside the people that they're already doing business with. And then you could do an influence play to get them to, bring a new stakeholder into the conversation, or an intro to make something directly to you. So that's where there's like this very specific, play that an AE could run, for example, that wasn't really talked about or written about in the world of partnerships, right? And that's really the remit of Nearbound, is how to get these direct teams to run these partner plays. And the companies that are doing it, turns out, works pretty dang well.
That one related to that. Where's Joel Carter? Where you at, Joel? Yeah, there you are. Come on with us. So Joel's asking about categories or verticals where this is really working well. And I know, Jared, we're focused on a lot in SaaS, but like someone like me having most experience working with professional service providers, I mean, I've built my business and get every conversation and every deal based on some of these nearbound concepts. Why would I create content, hope somebody watches it and comes to me when I could just pick the influencer out of the audience? Hey, Jared, come create content with me. Every single piece of
Bingo.
content that I do is done with somebody that has already surrounded my people. So I'm just wondering if you've found this to be particularly problematic in particular industries, and maybe you could speak to why it's so prolific in the SaaS world today.
Well, if you look at every single major industry leader, they tend to have some dominance in their space due to network effects, right? Due to partner ecosystem. And then I would say their individual contributors have a higher propensity to run these nearbound plays, right? They're better at interoperating with other companies, partners, influencers, advisors than the laggards, or the people that are losing. I think the other thing to call out there, Max, is um, if you think about the word partnerships as it relates to tech, most of us are probably here tangentially associated to tech. Even if you're in a services world, you probably have some tech that you're implementing, or you're servicing a tech company. Um, a lot of tech in the world of partnerships or channel emanated from an old world that doesn't exist anymore. It really doesn't. And it's a diminishing world. And that was like PBX telecom systems, where you needed local partners to distribute on-premise hardware, software, from purchasing and identifying to implementation. And that's what channel really meant. You had a direct organization and an indirect organization. The world of SaaS broke down those walls. So a lot of the partner playbook and things that were written about from the channel world don't really apply to SaaS native companies or organizations that are cloud-based, that don't really have local presence. So I think it's, Nearbound is most applicable to cloud native companies, right? So if you're running your business on cloud applications and SaaS, you are a SaaS organization, or you're servicing companies with cloud applications and SaaS, Nearbound is much more applicable to you than anything you'll ever look at with the word channel. Most things with the word channel mean independent business unit, right? Independent P&L, sell through, MDF, things like that, that are still very valuable in the channel world. But I'm talking about a specific industry, when I mean cloud native. And I think Nearbound applies most there.
I'm gonna bring in Marnie for a second. Marnie, I see you over there. Marnie is fresh off the sale. Well, maybe, sort of fresh, few months off the sale of the SaaS platform that she developed. So maybe you could, and Marnie, I was talking to a specific somebody that was in and around the team that you sold that business to, and they were saying, yeah, that Nearbound stuff, that's exactly what Marnie did. And now we're missing that. And this outbound stuff ain't working. This inbound stuff's not working. The only thing that's working is the events where we're creating real relationships, but we don't know how to replicate that in a digital way.
Scalable, yeah.
How did Marnie do it? So
Yeah.
what?
Well,
Yeah.
I was curious because Jared, your experiences are vast and impressive, and we had just a little microcosm of it. So what did it look like for us, little itty bitty? Was we always, Max, similar to what you say, like invited Jared Fuller to do a webinar with, because then you have access to his space. So we would do webinars with partners that were much larger. We, swung above our weight class as often as we could. In particular, often had to provide sweat equity in order to get in the game, right? So find somebody that worked with our audience, So we knew we sold to MSPs. So other vendors who worked with our client base, we would go to them and say, hey, we would like to promote you to our partners and your partners, right? And do a webinar. This is a language that this is a problem we solve together. We have a conversation around that. I'll do all the social media. I'll build all the slides. I'll make the slide deck. I'll do the invites. I'll do the Zoom meeting, blah, blah, to help get them to come to the party.
Well, what you said is so important. Be the most helpable person in the room. Like I can go across marketing to sales. I'll give you a perfect example of like why this worked for you and why it doesn't work for a lot of people. I was on this podcast called 30 Minutes to Sales, 30 Minutes to President's Club. Sorry. It's the #1 podcast, I think, in terms of downloads in the sales kind of SaaS space. And Nick Puglisi, one of the co-hosts, was having me walk through how to run these like inbound or nearbound sales plays, like Intel, Influence, Intro. And one of the things and principles about being an AE is like, you want an intro email. Well, who do you want the intro to? Why do you want the intro? Write the intro for the person that you're asking it for. Like, make it easy. And sure enough, about a month later, after I was on the podcast, Nick sends me a DM and he goes, hey, Jared, would you be willing to make some intros to me into this account and this account? Now, think about the mental gymnastics that I have to go through. Okay, you want an intro into these accounts. Well, what people and why? And then why me? So if this all worked that way, none of us would have jobs, right? It'd just be easy. It's just like, okay, you just ask people and they make you money. Fantastic. You ask people to make you money and they make you money. No, be the most helpable person in the room. Give me the context. Write the ask for me. That's like a reason why. And it's the same thing when it goes to marketing. I bet a lot of folks on this call know who Peter Caputa is, right? Pete been my sales mentor and partnerships mentor for 3 companies in a row. It's kind of crazy to think I've been working with Pete for 8 years as a mentor. And he has this phrase, make your partners famous. Well, what he really means is like, do all the hard work for him, right? Make them look good, write good copy, write good content, and do it omni-channel, right? Highlight them in the emails, highlight them in the blog posts, tag them in the social posts, make them look good. And I think one of the Nearbound principles and things that I really strove for when I created Partner Hacker and then nearbound.com is anytime someone did an event with us or a co-marketing something, we made them look better than they've ever looked before. Why? I was a 4-person company, And I'm getting companies that have hundreds and thousands of employees to market with us. Like, how could a 4-person company get HubSpot to co-market with them? Well, my media was fantastic, right? And I think that's these are Nearbound principles. Be the most helpable person in the room, whether you're marketing with or you're selling with. If they're like, man, I love collaborating with this person. These are some timeless principles that work every time.
I want to tag Amelia in. This is a question that has come up in our calls. Jared and I have been doing a lot of calls because we're looking for an engagement together with some of these SaaS organizations that we know. Like I said, I can't say no to these people that are literally reaching out to me going, Max, can you please do some consulting with us? Yes, let me bring in Jared. And the question comes up, who owns this? Because the immediate thought is, oh, this is owned by partnerships. But as Jared was already saying, that means it's in a dark room somewhere, and it's often difficult to get the go-to-market functions to adopt some of these principles. Amelia, I'll let you take it from there, but is the question who owns it?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer my own question. I love that. So there's got to be the executive alignment, right? You've got to have the executives all aligned, but there's got to be someone from each part of this go-to-market team. There doesn't have to be solely partnerships who's owning this. And I'm a firm believer in that. I think that there could be the marketing side and say you start there, right? You start in the marketing and there's the proof of concept, proof of value. You're proving the value. They're seeing it because so many people are so skeptical right now. They don't want to make moves. They're scared. They're freaking out. They're like, what do we do next? So they're choosing inaction as their action. So if going back to the original question, it's where it's got to be at this compounding effect where everybody is playing a role in this. If it's going to be surrounding the customer, it's got to be your whole team internally adopting the Nearbound strategy. But who, in terms of ownership, I would say go find the most knowledgeable person when it comes to Nearbound and say they're outside the company, go get them and bring them in to train your executive team on how to do this best. The leaders within each department between sales, marketing, CS.
All right, then I got a question for Jared. Jared, where have you seen it start and where does it end up from a responsibility standpoint when done properly?
So who owns GTM? Right, go to market. Right, it's not supposed to be a funnel, it's supposed to be a flywheel, and that's marketing, sales, and success. So who owns that? That typically needs to be a CEO, and strategy is the most misunderstood word in all of startups. Companies that are scared of the word strategy are scared of making choices. Right? Strategy is merely choice. Where will we play? Or like, what is our winning aspiration? Where will we play? How will we win? And what capabilities must be in place in order for that to be true? It's from a book called Playing to Win. It's a dense read. It's a difficult read. But in that simple framework, it's like, what choices are we making? So you do need CEO buy-in and you need cross-departmental alignment. Like, what choices are we making? I think the thing that simplifies this across marketing, sales, and success is that each department has its own cadences and rituals already. From account assignment, what accounts are we marketing to? To sales account assignment, what accounts am I selling to? To what accounts am I serving? And we overlay that annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. What accounts, what activities, what reporting? That's the job to be done. And I think if you're like, hey, I can't get my entire GTM team focused on this right now, we have a churn problem out the wazoo and we just fired our CCO or whatever, I would start in the marketing team. I think marketing team is the best place to start this initiative. Why? What is the root of marketing? It's market. We've over-indexed on the ing. Who surrounds your customers? If your marketing team is not really good at not just going to market, but living in market, right? Okay. Like any CMO that I would say is worth their weight in salt, here's a question I'd go ask. Hey, tell me your top 10 customers. Maybe they'll get like 3 to 5 of them right. Okay. Who do your top 10 customers, who do those customers trust? Name them. These are specific names. These are vendors. These are consultants. These are agencies. They are people. They exist. It's not this amorphous, ivory tower spreadsheet of some mythical creature in some far off land. These are actual relationships that exist where? In the market, not in your company, in the market. Live in market. That's my clarion call. Like I get so, Max, the thing I get more disgusted of in B2B SaaS than anything else is ivory tower intellectualism, right? It's death by model. Look at the spreadsheet. If we just do these activities and we do these things, and then this thing's going to go through this way, and then I want to math the world into existence. The map is not the territory. Your operating model is not the market. And I see so many CMOs that fall into that trap. So like, if you want to focus on the ing, good luck. Robots are going to take your job. You're out. If you want to focus on the market and get your company closer connected to where, look at Pete Caputo and what he did at DataBox. 3-person marketing team created content with thousands of agencies, 1 million website hits a month. Why? There you go. Like, what more proof do you need than like creating content with and living in market is a far better model than looking at it from, target account and MQL and this and this and this and this and this. It's like, sure, measure things, report on them, try to figure out attribution, but live in market. And I think marketing, you have to start there. What accounts do you want? What accounts do you have? Who are those people? What are those relationships? And then every single marketing campaign that you do, why would you ever do that alone? Why? What an egocentric view of the world. I'm so important that people are going to care about my product and my voice. No, they don't. If you want new people, they don't trust you. They trust the people they're already doing business with. They trust the events that they already attend. They trust the podcast that they already listen to. They trust the newsletter that they already read. Do you get my point? And would it not behoove you to be a part of those conversations versus thinking you can own them yourself? Sorry, I went on a heater there, but I mean,
yeah. So I had one question, and it's probably the best one-liner I've heard from you. And then I'm going to turn it over to we'll do a 5-second silence moment of silence for the introverts to speak up. But my question is like for the service providers out here, they're in go-to-market, right? Their value proposition is something in and around help your company grow, right? Plus 3 buzzwords. What is the conversation starter to the client? Like what is the biggest trigger of like, oh, you got me? Is it that inbound's not work? Is it that content's not working? Is it that AI has is it that like nobody care like what is the best conversation starter that leads
Here's
down in this direction?
here's where I think I can really drive this point home that's really undeniable. Someone throw in chat or unmute yourself and tell me, who do you sell to? Like, what's the persona?
Yeah, we got Joe Young throwing in, did you hit your number? Which
You
So
want to
like,
get
I've
an
seen.
answer? Ask that one.
right.
Yeah, I've seen Jared do that, and then there's some there, and but they have different answers, which is funny,
So
Joe.
like anyone
You
selling
got-
to like, we got Ed Marsh on the line, he does a lot of stuff in manufacturing, right? A manufacturing executive or like a CIO, right? Here's what I'll ask my clients. And I've done this in front of hundreds of CMOs, hundreds. So I did this at Latney Canant's Coffee Talk series with Matt Hines. And there's about 200 CMOs on this call. And I said, who do you sell to? Who do you market to? And they said, one CMO raised their hand and said, CIOs. Fantastic. How many marketing people on your team have ever been CIOs? How many sellers on your team have ever been CIOs? How many CSMs have ever been CIOs? The answer is none. So let me give you a cold, hard, undeniable fact that trust comes from helping people reach their promised land. But the paradox is that we only trust people who've been to the places we want to go. So what gives you the right to tell a CIO how to be a CIO, much less a better CIO?
Gonna get slapped around.
It's an undeniable fact. So what would you rather do? Would you rather be the company that's like, no, my content is so good. Why is it so inherently good? Because you think it's good? Or do your customers think it's amazing? No, great content helps people. Great content helps people. And if you have never been to your customer's promised land, then you have to make content with people who have. It's undeniable. And then if your sellers have never actually helped people get to that promised land, and they haven't, let's be honest, they're selling access to software. They're not selling client outcomes. If you own an agency, yeah, maybe you actually have account directors that handhold people and deliver outcomes. Good for you. But your clients need this. You need to be selling with to make sure that you can build that plan and path to the promised land. That's kind of my point. That's the most undeniable thing. Trust comes from helping people reach their promised land, but we only trust people who've been to the places we want to go. It would behoove you to work with those people. And that can be customers, that can be partners, it could be influencers, it could be advisors, it could be industry thought leaders. Who does your customer already trust? Who has done the thing that your customer is trying to do? Get them integrated across your go-to-market teams. That's the only way to win in 2024.
I liked what you said, and I'm gonna use it a lot. Hey, why would you ever do anything in marketing alone? You said that earlier,
Yeah.
and I really liked it. And I'll give you one. You know why my clients, you know how I know my clients like my content, Jared?
You tell me.
Because they created it.
Yeah.
I just put their face on LinkedIn and ask them questions, and they love it.
Yeah.
'Cause
Make it
it's
easy.
theirs.
Yeah. It's
And
mutually
sometimes
beneficial.
I insert a rant in there, but yeah, it's like, I accidentally fell into this because I just wanted to learn. 9 years ago, I wanted to learn from my audience. So just started cracking beers and asking them questions. Okay, 5 seconds. 5 seconds of silence. It's not going to be silent over here. Kids are already screaming, but 5 seconds of silence. If there's an introvert in the room, you've got something you want to ask or add.
I've got a question for Jared.
What's up, Ed?
Yeah.
So you said that it's primarily for SaaS, and I understand that's the world where you live primarily, but it feels to me like it's got such broad applicability. I mean, every service, every product has adjacency, and it feels like the essence of this is about adjacency. So help me understand, why do you think it's primarily SaaS? Just because they've got online platforms with service partners?
Um, what I mean to say is cloud native versus geo based is the perspective that I come at it with. Everything that I've just been saying, though, these are first principles. Like I like to say the same 10 things 1,000 times versus 1,000 things 10 times, right? Like build up from first principles. And these are more universally true than just some mere like go to market model. So it's not to say that this doesn't apply in other places. Like, I could take the trust analogy to why do we trust consumer brands today? Like, what consumer brands do you trust? You trust Amazon because you always get those deliveries in less than 48 hours, right? It's the repeatability of customer outcomes, right? Trust comes from helping people reach their promised line. You're always getting the thing that you think you're getting, and Uber always shows up at that generic time. I think in the business world, what we lack is repeat customer outcomes where we're actually getting people to the promised land. That's why agencies' client retention is number one, right? Like we actually have to deliver outcomes. Whereas in SaaS sells access to software. They don't sell outcomes. If anyone has a SaaS contract that has outcomes baked into their pricing model, like tell me more. Sure, there might be consumption with like a Twilio or something like that, but there's a big distinction there. So I just approach this from the SaaS world because they have such a massive disconnect from customer outcomes, right? And if trust equals helping people reach their promised land, SaaS is so abstracted from customer outcomes, especially today, that's where I've attacked it from. But these principles apply cross industry.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Adjacency. I love adjacency, right? I use in the book, I talk about gravity and proximity as well, right? So gravity is how much strength you have. Proximity is how close, right? So those two vectors really help you think about, do I have something good here? Do you have the pull? And are you close enough to demonstrate any reach?
I don't know if you saw in the chat, Bobby G put, can this work if it isn't symbiotic?
Great question. Great question, actually. There's this concept that my business partner, Isaac, likes to talk about a lot. This is, again, a universal principle of, social capital, right? And so social capital has to be accrued and it can be, spent, right? There's debits and there's credits. So I've certainly done this. I mean, Ed's probably been on the receiving end of this, ironically, is that, you can build up a lot of social capital and then you can draw down that bank account to zero real quick. And that can happen. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, we got to go back the other way. That's why I think it's so important to focus on not just the sales department. I mean, where this gets screwed up the most is by extracting all of that social capital, i.e. the debits, through the sales organization, absent the assistance with marketing with, right? Hey, we create great content together. They're amazing to work with. I mean, I just got off a call with the CMO of Allbound this morning, Pete Rawlinson. And we'd gone back and forth, and my partner team had been kind of, trying to extract value out of their, sales organization. And, it's a fair, healthy relationship, but he was kind of given some pushback. But here's the thing. He was like, gosh, that content that we were doing together and everything's so amazing on that, I'm going to let this sales stuff slide. It's like, okay, I can extract because I'm giving some value. It does need to be symbiotic. And then I think this is where I'll introduce a new concept that I think is the most important. It's the most important metric in all of this, which I refer to as partner attach rate, PAR. And partner attach rate, I think, can help solve the symbiotic, question really simply. You should be measuring partner attach for pipeline generation and for your forecast, your close won deals, and for your customer success, what on a per partner basis and then on a global basis. It allows you to cohort things pretty interesting and see, hey, partner attached pipeline closes 2 times faster with, X 43% faster time to close, and then maybe a higher ACV. You'll get 2 of those 3 things each time, typically. Now, the reason why partner attach is so important is that you should give to partners that source, right? Meaning on your customer success side, right? Always prioritize partners that bring you something top of funnel, right? On partner attach on the pipeline side. And that's why this really should be an orchestrated GTM motion, right? If you have marketing buy-in, at least you can do some symbiotic stuff top of funnel. But if it's just sales, you're SOL, really. You and everyone else. Just like I mentioned 30 Minutes to President's Club, Nick Caglisi, hey, make these intros for me. Like, I published the version of our podcast. You didn't even publish my podcast. Like, you came to my event. We did a live event. You didn't even put it on your own feed. Screw you, Nick. Like, we didn't even do anything. co-marketing and you're asking me for intros. Maybe I would have been like, hey, remember, I mean, I did send him the clip from the podcast where I said, hey, here's how you're supposed to do this, idiot. But I think it does have to be symbiotic, and that's why it should be orchestrated. There's some great content out there from Aaron McGarry. He was the chief ecosystem officer at Qualtrics, where him and I discussed at length how to use partner attach as a mechanism for driving performance, setting sales comp, right? Like, hey, 50% of your pipeline must be partner attach, or you don't meet quota. All of a sudden sellers start really figuring stuff out. And then same thing on the success side. Hey, always prioritize accounts that need help by giving those to partners that source, reinforcing the same basic behaviors. But great question.
I had one answer. First of all, I've never made my kids lunch on a live facilitated call. So that's a first for me.
Bravo,
Chicken
Max.
and French fries, everyone.
Typical
But
dad lunch.
I had to answer my answer for the why SaaS. I think this is an absolute necessity for industries that have become nearly impossible to differentiate. And
Yes.
boy, that sounds like SaaS to me. Like you were on a call the other day, Jared, and you were just like, look, you can't sell and get attention for SaaS software without having the trust and the attention of partners because there's just thousands in every category and new categories are being created every second and those get crowded the next day. And so
Well,
yeah, that's
here's a
part of
quick
my
anecdote because this
conspiracy
happened in
theory.
the past 2 weeks. Have y'all seen that crazy MarTech landscape map from Scott Brinker, right? That has,
That was like 10 years ago.
right. So, but this is what's crazy. There's 14,106 this year, but there was like 11,000 last year. It had 27% year over year growth just in the past year. And I was like, how did it get worse? Like there was already too much noise in the MarTech space. It got even worse. Like the growth rate was bigger this year. Like 3,000 companies were added between 2023 and 2024. There was more growth in 1 year than the 3 years prior.
And I think
That's
at this
not
rate
good.
of I think at this rate of new logos, you're just forcing the market to say, I don't care.
Does anyone
You
feel
know?
burnout?
Yeah, like
I mean,
I don't
let's be
care
real.
about your tool.
Right. Everyone's burnout. So what do we do? Like, let's talk about some quick behavioral things that I think are super fun to like just make this real for y'all. Do you Google as much as you used to? I mean, for real. No, you don't. Why? So like if I have a problem with my business and I Google like, hey, how to fix this issue with my forecast. Oh my gosh.
You're getting a phone call in 10 minutes.
What's the content I'm going to get? I'm going to get 14 listicle driven SEO optimized bot content blah that's all about their product, not actually helping me. What do I do instead? If it's a forecasting problem, I might go to like Modern Sales Pros, which is a community of sales leaders that I respect and trust. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to search the archives for some posts about this, right? And then I'm going to see that Taft Love, an operations manager that I trust, I've done work with him before, says, hey, you should do this with Clary or, whatever Gong. Oh, okay, awesome. And then I'm going to take his word and I'm going to buy the thing and I'm going to have Taft help me. And that happens in like a day because I just can't do the research. Like I have to turn to people who've done the thing that I'm trying to do. I trust Taft. Here is his answer. Like that's how we buy. Like go Google what temperature to cook bacon. You're going to get a history of pork, ovens, temperature. Like it's just all manipulated time on page. Like you see people laughing. It's ridiculous. Go look at a product review site, G2, right? Or some other, any site. Every single item, 4.7 stars. Every single one is I call it 4.7 star syndrome, right? Anything below 4.7 must be a piece of junk. Anything above 4.7 must be fake. And what was hilarious, Max, is
I think the rating on my book is a 4.7 for the record. I think I threaded the needle.
Perfect. You are in the top of this parabola. Here's what was so interesting. When I started publishing like this 4.7 star syndrome phenomena, and I was talking trash about review sites, I'm like, no one cares about your reviews. Everyone has 4.7 stars. Like we don't look at reviews like we used to. That used to be the case. It's no longer the case. Guess who came at me and was like, I agree with you. The CEO of Trust Radius. Vinay. And I was like, you run a review site. Like, how? I thought you were going to be like trash talking me. He's like, no, we did an independent survey of 2,000 B2B buyers last year, 2023. You know what's 20 times more important than the score of a review? Is the relevancy of the reviewer to people like me. So they've rebuilt their entire product to try and get the relevancy of social capital in front of people at the same time. He said, Jared, I don't just agree with you. We're rebuilding all of Trust Radius around this. And if that's not just evidence, like ultimate evidence, then I don't know what is. The way we buy have changed.
My evidence is I read a review for the movie Ricky's to Nikki, and it said it was like the greatest movie of all time. I lasted like 30 minutes and I was just like, when does it get funny? And I realized I'm never going to trust a movie review ever again. I still trust restaurant reviews, but I'm very skeptical.
Well, I'll give you an example though. Who you trust is someone that has similar tastes and preferences and stuff like that. For example, if you're a big sports fan, right? You like your beer, you watch a lot of sports, and you love your pizza, you probably watch Dave Portnoy's reviews, right? Like that guy's got it on lock. It was a crazy niche, but like people trust
one
Dave's
bite,
pizza
everyone
reviews.
knows the rules. Yeah.
Yeah. See, everyone, relevancy to people like you. How many women watch that? Probably not as many, right? Like, you have different tastes. Relevancy to the reviewer to people like you.
Yeah. Well,
Jared,
I don't
just in
Google
line
stuff
with,
about books. I just ask Corey. Yeah.
sort of what you're talking about here. I sent a proposal out like on Thursday, and I read your book, and like the next morning I opened my inbox and I got a response from the proposal, and basically this person was like, I'm going to choose to work with someone else based on thoughts from organizations I value and people I trust in the industry. And I'd had this moment where I just was like, what the fuck? Like, is Jared? I'm like, is he here? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, you called me
So
that day. That was the day I told you about this thing, and then you got the book, and then the next day you called me, and you're like, "This is weird. I don't like it."
The zeitgeist. There's something in the air where like everyone's realizing this at the same time. Yeah.
totally. And so you're talking about like behavioral things. And so my question I was going to ask you is like, how is trust built in the digital realm? And you answered that, hey, trust comes from helping people get to the promised land. But like, what are some just kind of like, behavioral things to like incorporate for kind of like building trust, especially if you're trying to surround people? Because even if I'm trying to surround, like, there's always that cold, like if I'm going around and there's always that initial kind of cold touch, like, and so Max asked you, like, what's a conversation starter to the client?
This is fun. I'll give you some examples that might help illustrate this in like very practical terms. So trust comes from helping people reach their promised land. Where are they going? So who are you talking to and where are they going? Like, make sure that we understand that. What are their objectives? And I'll give a very specific example. So let's say I'm talking about Drift, where I led partnerships, and I'm trying to become from zero to Marketo's #1 partner globally, right? So I had zero relationship, no integration, nothing, to #1 globally. The aha moment for me, and I'd done this in the past and didn't realize it, was like my fastest path to money inside of Marketo is I got to make sure that Marketo's interest, where are they going? What is the top 3 executive imperative for them? What can I help with? So one of those was net dollar retention. They need to expand their current accounts. Okay, cool. And then who's responsible for that in the organization? Their CSMs and AMs. Okay, great. Now, what could Drift do to impact that? And what could I do to leverage it? Drift chatbot on website, we would help add more contacts to Marketo's database, right? That's how Marketo would generate more upsell. The number of contacts in the database could generate a larger contract value. Guess how CSMs were compensated? Based on their net dollar retention. So you could see how just the focus on how do I help them? And then I had to go get our first customers, our first accounts. I had to make sure that that implementation went phenomenally well. I actually built the conversational marketing blueprint for Drift. That was not something my marketing team created. That was not something a CSM created. That was something that I created to make sure that those implementations of Drift were world-class, that it added more contacts to the database outcome, right? And Marketo going, hey, this Shopify account, we just had an 80K upsell because of this implementation, right? I made them more money. That CSM, she made more money. And then you know what I did? I had the formula. I went and I met with every single CSM at the entire Marketo account in 3 days, every single office. And I said, here's Steve Lucas, your CEO's #1 objective. Here's your book. Here's how this CSM closed an 80K upsell. We're going to go put this in all of your accounts, baby. And you know what? They're like, well, you're helping me, right?
Yeah.
So where
It
are they
strikes
going?
me
How do you help?
like my summary of that is the same amount of intentionality and intelligence that you put into the sale today, that you put into like your direct customer, you're now putting that into these ecosystem partners. You have to ultimately sell the relationship to them in a depth that equals the sale to the customer.
So you have to be able to answer that question, right? Like, where can I partner or where can I do Nearbound things? Well, you have to know where these partners are going, and you have to know where you can help. And then the win-win-win is whenever you can benefit from that yourself. It's a simple, 2x2 matrix. Where are they going? Top the metric, and then who's responsible. And when those things align, that's when you have a really good partnership and you can drive those outcomes. When they don't align, good luck. Now, I can give you another example that's a much more amorphous. Like maybe you have two good brands, but there's not like some big integration and a bunch of dollars. Like Drift and Gong, we did tons of co-marketing in our early life cycle together, but we never had any integration. It was just, hey, anytime we did something with Gong, we both got more pipeline. Great. It's like we both love pipeline. Here we go. It's good co-marketing between, Udi and Dave Gerhardt. It worked every time, right? Simple enough. So just, hey, they want more pipeline. We have more pipeline. Just align to the objectives and then be able to deliver outcomes. And I like
time for
having the
one
word
or
help over give, right? Gives are worthless. Help is like where they're actually going. Be the most helpable partner in someone's ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I like just kind of translated that. It's almost like for each kind of instance, you kind of help at the top, then you just need to like draw out your ecosystem and like make your little plan. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna connect these dots. That was thanks for kind of the example and walking through that one.
Of course.
a map. I see a map, a
Yeah, yeah.
drawing. I draw things. We got time for one or two more. I put 2 links in the chat. One is the invite to the first official Nearbound Live, and we're trying to bring together the SaaS companies and the service providers to actually talk about like current Nearbound initiatives, like real stuff, and share resources there. And then I did a full interview with Jared on the Nearbound operating system, like how to actually operationalize some of this stuff. I put that link in there too. Really fun interview. And what else? What else do we got? We got about 6 official minutes. I'm actually surprised my kids haven't burned the house down, so this is a success for me. Thank you for your support in Beers with Max in general, and we'll keep this going as long as people can continue to tell folks about it and show up and ask questions. So, what else we got? 5 seconds for the introverts. Is that what you're posturing there, Amelia?
Just doing the countdown.
Oh, you're doing okay.
Just doing a countdown. Seeing a video.
Norberry, you got nothing? I'm looking at you. You got nothing. Okay.
Here, talk about real quick. Talk about internal, external evangelists. How you can leverage having people internally in the organization who are spreading the good word, but you also are using your customers who are doing that, your power users, your partners, those people are where they're able to evangelize, and that's just the flywheel effect completely.
I talk about this in the book that I think is pretty important. There's these 4 jobs to be done with marketing. Let me pull this up real quick. So I think the modern marketing team and the Nearbound marketing team has these 4 different jobs to be done: journalists, content creators, partners, and customers. Now, the content creators can be that kind of evangelist, but a journalist is about finding the story. So like, what are we talking about? What's the hook? What's the thing? Right? Like, we talk a lot about copy, but we don't talk a lot about stories. So like, what are the stories and who's getting them? This can be the market, it can be your customers, it can be whoever. Then you have the creators or the evangelists. Their job is story spreading. I think you have to have that step above it. A lot of folks try to activate evangelists absent a story. Like, hey, here's this really influential person, right? And this really influential person is going to talk about my product. No, they're not, right? You know, what's the story? The story has to be worth talking about by itself. So that's why I put as the job to be done first, journalist, job to be done, story finding. Second, content creators, job to be done, story spreading. Third, partners, job to be done, story connecting, right? How to bring this into a more cohesive vision. And then the fourth one is customers, right? Which for them, the job to be done is story validating. The story has proof, right? It actually happened. And so I think that 4-part framework helps answer the evangelist question, because in order to activate evangelists, you need to be able to validate it on the back end with customers, connect it with partners right before, right? And then at the top of the funnel, what the heck's the story? Why would an evangelist even care about what we're talking about?
Is that typically an internal role, the journalist?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mindset, right? It's a job to be done. So a job to be done, the JTBD framework can be done by anyone. It's just defining like, hey, here's our content creation engine. First question, what's the story? How do we find them? And that can be a content marketing manager to whoever the heck it is. I just think that B2B companies really suck at thinking like a media company. You have all these people that write content, but no one that can find a story. The chat bot isn't going to find a story for you. You can differentiate by finding stories. And that's all I've ever done. I mean, whenever I go out and I get people that have, I'm oftentimes an influencer of influencers. Think about that. How do I do that? I don't just write content for them. I do that. I help them write content, but I get the hook, the story, like whenever Bessemer Venture Partners releases their State of Cloud report, right? And they say, oh, partner-led growth, and this is going to become the number one trend for like 2023 or whatever. I go get 4 of my biggest people in VC land. I write something up for them, tie it to me and go, this is a big story. And it's about to affect all your CROs and CMOs. Get this out there. And they're like, okay, great. That's story finding, right? And then I activate my evangelists, and then I can validate it with my customers, and my partners talk about it too. So I can create this surround sound effect, Dolby Digital Atmos, whatever, THX in your big screen, where people go, whenever Jared's talking about something, it's like everyone's talking about it. It's because there's got to be a story. It's media. It's not, it's media, not marketing, is how I think about it. It's movements, not, campaigns.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Let me know where to make out the check. And again, I'm most excited about this because never have I ever had senior executives literally reaching out to me saying, look, we need to get you involved in our strategic planning process because we saw you on that podcast talking about this Nearbound thing. If you don't know your customers are talking about it, you need to start asking questions, because
I think it's the biggest agency solutions consulting opportunity probably in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, right now is that help people figure this stuff out, because the traditional stuff ain't working.
It's been content is king for 10 years, since HubSpot did, put millions of dollars into that. And then AI is the final thing that's just like, well, now we got 10 billion kings. So what are you going to do now? Not sell content. I tell you that. You need something to redirect the budget and rekindle the faith in marketing dollars. And so that's my conspiracy theory. Thank you much. We did it. Lunch was made. Kids are too quiet. I got to go figure that out. I'll see you on the LinkedIns. I'll be sending everybody the recording, and I don't know, maybe a little gift basket. We'll see. And if you want to join us on June 5th and you got some actual things that you're implementing you want to share or meet people that are, see you there. Cheers. Cheers, Max.
Cheers,
Out.
everyone.
Yeah.